And now, it's the Finding Your Spine podcast with host Chase Spears.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Finding Your Spine podcast, where we call you to live and lead boldly in the truth. Vanessa Reid is my guest today. Boy, it's exciting to have you in here, buddy. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
What most people don't know, and we're going to put right out here, like, you are a big part of the reason that I'm sitting here doing this.
I will take that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
think it's God, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, God, and using you and using the whole team here. That the backstory for those listening or watching is when the foundation put out their email that they were looking for people to come and share new ideas about new podcasts. You got the email. For some reason, I didn't. I'd been on the email list, and then I guess maybe I'd fallen off. I don't know. But somehow I had missed it, and you got it, and you said, "Hey, Chase, have you seen this thing?" And I was like, "No." And I looked at it, and I was like, "God, I don't know. Would my idea stand out against just a host of other amazing people that are going to be there?" And you were like,
Yes.
And you convinced me. You teased me about bullying you. You bullied me into coming down.
Only
auditioning.
for good.
Only for good.
For good things.
And now and this has been fun. And now here you are too, right? So
that part was unexpected. If this was gonna happen, I would have just kept the email to myself if I knew.
Oh no! You have a great story to tell, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun to tell it. But before we jump in, let's talk a little bit about you. I mean, you're a daughter of God. You're a wife of over 20 years. You're a mother of two, business developer, longtime volunteer in the community. Your family's been in this area for well over a century. Very grounded, very rooted, and then in 2020, something changed a little bit in your life, and that's where we met. That's where our paths crossed. And what was that? It seems like 2020 is like the central year that keeps coming up in these interviews.
Yeah, I was wiping down my groceries with Clorox wipes for a few weeks, I would say. I was the only one in Dillon's without a mask on, with my quite young daughter at the time, just 2 or 3 years old, going, getting my attention to the radio that you're supposed to wear your mask, Mom, because everybody else was too, and she didn't understand why I wasn't. And then the same thing at Walmart, and it made you feel like an odd man out. It made you feel like there was something almost wrong with you, that you would question why everyone was just kind of blindly following this ridiculous situation of mask mandates. And, they wanted the kids home from school. The parks were caution taped off as if it was a murder scene, but it was really just extremely poor decision-making from the government level. So, yeah, I may have called some city commissioners and left some messages and things. But I think it was a really stressful time for everybody. But what I think we should have done better is to actually sit down and communicate with each other, which was impossible to do because we all had to be in our homes and 6 feet apart without our mouths visible if we were in public. So, but I think that the communication just really broke down, especially online. I mean, you were judging a person's character by whether they had a stay-home screensaver on their social media.
Wasn't that crazy?
It was just...
the virtue signaling was like next level.
Yeah. So I remember getting so much pressure, feeling so much pressure in Dillon's that I finally put the mask on to finish my shopping trip. But I think home delivery became really popular during that time. I would say a highlight for me was getting to know our local business. We have Jets Farm in Leavenworth, and I had never been to their business prior to that. So I think it did get us to kind of step out of our day-to-day routine and have to kind of pivot a little bit and figure out maybe, there's more out there than the big box stores and stuff like that, which we talk about all the time, but we don't always make the investment. So I think there was some good that came out of it, but definitely a lot of sad. Keeping the kids home, the mental health, the speech delays, what they did to the kids is, I think, the worst part. So
it was terrible, and that led into the work that you're doing right now. I mean, so in addition to everything you're already doing, raising this family and building these businesses, but like this drew you into the political realm. You are now a school board member on USD 453 in Leavenworth, infamously so. And we're going to talk a lot about that. Oh,
thankfully,
yes,
counting down. I think I have just a few meetings left.
Just a few meetings left, and a county commissioner.
Yeah, well, funny enough, one of the county commissioners that kept wanting to mask the county down after this time period. I thought she needed a different job. Maybe she needed to stay at home. So, I was very thankful to the people of Leavenworth for voting for me.
So let's go back. There was this event before you were ever running for office.
Yeah.
It had to do with a kind of end of year celebration for the school kids that the school was canceling, and you were like, not on my watch.
Yeah, so my son no longer attended there, but it was the elementary school that he had attended at David Brewer, and there was a principal there at the time who I thought I knew. We had gone to church together. His wife had served on the praise team. I had also served on the praise team at the same church, and I reached out to him. He was also a small business owner. And so I felt like we had a relationship again about communication, right? I felt like we had established open communication. But it just didn't work out. So he was wanting, my understanding was he was wanting parents to bring their COVID passport, proving that they had received the vaccination or whatever we're going to call it, and to go to an outdoor field trip with their kids. I think it was to the Riverfront Park, and they were going to see a movie at the local movie theater. So I started seeing this on social media. I started seeing parents, one parent in particular, the news came and did a story on it, from Kansas City and all this. So I just kind of really pushed back against the school district. Like, how dare they even suggest that they have any rights over the personal health decisions of the parents involved with the children that they're sending to public school. The whole thing was super egregious. So the superintendent at the time, the decision was just to cancel the field trip. And that was before I was on the board. But I just thought it was an extremely immature reaction. Instead of correcting the situation and saying, we're so sorry, obviously you can come anywhere your children are, which should be what's happening. So I threw just a community park party, and there were small businesses and chains that came along. Domino's gave us a great deal on pizzas. Individuals came that we'd never met before to grill. Jester Frost did a beautiful painting like he does all around town with his artwork there at the park. Pat Proctor hopped in and did a DJ, so we just partied. And the thing that drew my attention was there was a girl, I think she was from a single mom type family, and she was using the field trip as kind of a birthday party celebration. And so her mom was upset about not being able to provide a different experience for her. And so we had birthday cake, we had community games. We just did everything we could to try to give the kids some normalcy. And we just threw it for the whole community. Another small business, Wild Cactus, came with their food truck and did nachos and lemonade or whatever. Just people, that's what was good about it. We're not too far from 9/11, obviously a totally different kind of tragedy. But again, like after that, you saw people come together, and I think we saw some of that on the backside of COVID as well.
Yeah, it's we're to this point now where, at least when it comes to COVID, things are back to normal, and I look back and it's almost like this bad dream. Like, did that really happen? I have to remind myself, yes, it really happened. I mean, like, Walmart there in Leavenworth. Like, they had directional arrows. You can go up this aisle this way and this aisle this way. And I'm like, because apparently COVID germs will only travel this way on that aisle and this way on that aisle, and science. And that was really kind of where you started being noticed for your public leadership, and starting to grow influence. And not long after that, you decided to actually compete for the school board, to put your name in the hat. And like, how did you go from this park event to, you know what, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm actually going to try to get on here and have formal authority over this?
Well, there was definitely some other things in play. There was books being read out loud too, and this was at the high school level, that are just totally inappropriate. It's never appropriate for a female to be reading, a teacher to be reading in front of a co-ed class about, a boy masturbating to pornography in his bathroom. I mean, it's just horrendous, if you ask me. And my son was placed in that situation. And so we knew, potentially, being small business owners, that it could be we didn't know what we were taking on. We had to have really hard conversations, because any small business owner knows that it takes a lot to run a small business and do it well. So it's a large investment. And but I sat down with my son one day, and we were talking about the things that were going on in his school. And he said, "Mom, if I was old enough to run for school board, I'd do it myself."
Wow.
And that's when I knew, like, okay, this is the right thing for us right now, So
even your son was disgusted by the direction of the school.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully my son felt comfortable enough to come home and read the book to me in the living room, and then I read it myself, so I'm very thankful for him for showing his father and I what was going on. If he wouldn't have felt comfortable or didn't want to put up with, and he went through a lot, we couldn't have told the future, but there were teachers running recall petitions who had him in their class as a student, from my school board seat. So I just think that adults need to stop and think about what they're doing sometimes. And like, if you're a teacher in a classroom, your priority needs to be the health and welfare of the students, not pushing your political agenda. And there was just a lot of that going on.
On some of these books, I mean, I remember Danny Zeck, who's now, thank God, on the State Board of Education, went to a school board meeting and he read aloud some of the books that are used in curriculum, and they tried to shut him down, said, "You can't read that filth in here." And it's like, then how can you read it to school children? I mean,
I think he went past time, which was epic, But so on the school board, I would have prayer meetings outside in the parking lot before the school board meetings. We'd do a prayer circle. Anybody was welcome to come, because I really believed that God asked me to run. I couldn't find anybody else to do it. I didn't think it should be me. And sometimes when something's laid on your heart and it's right there before your eyes and you can't convince anyone else to do it, it just has to be you. And that was this case. So one time outside of the school district building, he was standing on the outside of the prayer circle. So we hadn't met before that. I didn't know who he was. I had stopped by his house while I was campaigning, and he didn't answer the door.
How dare he?
Right?
Doesn't he know who you are?
So I said, "Hey, I've got this book, that I think you should know about." And so it really turned into greatness for the community. It turned into him reading it in front of the school board and trying to hold them accountable. And he had been on that exact same school board for many years prior. So it was kind of full circle moment for him, I think, and ended up, I think, encouraging his state school board run. I remember him calling and telling me he had filed for that position. So I love really the domino effect that I feel like we know God had in mind, before we all knew what was going to happen. So.
Yeah, and we've even seen that across, like, even not just in Leavenworth, but like there's been this trend across the nation of parents finally having enough. And walking into these board meetings and saying, this is the trash, the literal porn that you're putting in front of our children. And if you're comfortable with this in front of my kids, then you're going to have to face it here. And then the parents get shouted down, "Oh, that's vulgar. Oh, you can't read that in public meeting." And it's like, the impossibility of their logic. It's like the easy answer is to say, hey, if it's not good enough for the hall of the school board room, then it's definitely not up to snuff for the classroom. And I just, like, you've been on the school board now. What is the disconnect?
I don't know, other than literally political ideology. And I hate to say that I do think your faith and your understanding of the Bible does come into play. There definitely seems to be some alignment there, right? If your morals aren't based off of the Bible, the whole Bible, then what are they on? Why is murder wrong if you don't believe in the Bible? I think we have a lot of ways we can tie that together, but it's still a very current issue. Just as most recently as this Monday night, Mary Wood out of Lansing School District read a book that's in the school library, and you have staff going all over social media berating the school board for this being read aloud. So somehow even the teachers union isn't saying, this isn't good for our kids. This shouldn't be in our libraries. This wasn't the best use of taxpayer dollars. That's not the message. And so I think we really need to look extremely closely at the type of people that work in our schools.
Yeah.
Not everybody should be given the great responsibility of influencing our children on a daily basis all day long. And so the public school system really needs to be put under a very strong, magnifying glass, I guess you would say, because there's a lot of issues, and I don't see any appetite for it to be fixed from the inside. So
no, I don't think there's any appetite from the inside. I mean, this is one of those like professional realms of people who, we have the credential, and therefore we are smarter than you, dumb parent, and we are smarter than you, dumb school board, and we are smarter than you, dumb citizen and taxpayer, and we alone, because we have our teachers' degrees and we're members of a teachers' union, we alone are credentialed to know what is right. And it's a haughtiness, it's an arrogance, like they refuse to look inward. I mean, it's like don't hold a mirror up in front of a vampire, kind of same thing going on there.
One of the posters even went so far as to say how appalled she was, and this was a district employee, teachers union representative, that her 11 and 13-year-old were eating dinner at the time, and she had the school board meeting playing, and how awful it was to have this content that was meant for older teens. Well, I'm not sure what grade her children are in, but students can be 14 when they're a freshman in high school and have access to the high school library. Mm-hmm. So I would challenge what happens over that next year or some months that all of a sudden makes it good. And so I think if you just kind of nail them with their own ideals, they become extremely hard for them to defend.
Well, isn't one of their arguments always, hey, you parents can decide what books your kids get from the library. You can decide what content they get. So you shouldn't tell us what we have in the school. But then they flip it on its head, and this administrator is saying, oh, how dare Mary read this out loud because my kids could hear. Well, could you not turn off your computer? Mm-hmm. Like, could you not safeguard what's coming into your house? I mean, it's like, pick a rule and be consistent, right? But the only standards these people have are double standards. One
of the books, again, full credit to my son, it was a 10-book series in the high school library, and it was a Fire Force series, and it's nudity without nipples, I say, because that's what it was. It was cartoon drawing, but again, is this the best use of taxpayer dollars? And some of the material literally showed, a male character forcing his hand underneath the girl's panties. I mean, it was things that we don't teach our kids are okay, and it's just completely absurd to me that this is the highlight of these librarians. This is what they focus on. This is what they bring the kids' focus to. I mean, the librarian had, a game being played to bring highlight to this situation. So, and the book's available in the youth department at the local public library. And I love how people are starting to pay more and more attention to those are your taxpayer dollars in your local library. It's not just the school libraries that need purged, but it's the same at your public library. These libraries should be safe places for our kids. It's our taxpayer dollars. And a kid should be able to explore the library. There's always been an adult section. When I was a kid, I knew where the adult section was. It was labeled on the end. But the rest of the area was safe. I never picked up a book and saw something that I shouldn't have seen. Mm-hmm. So I love that the library was a reasonably safe space for me as a kid. And I think we definitely owe it to our kids to get back to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it was. I remember growing up, and I used to go to the library a lot. And I was never in danger of getting into pornography at the library. I mean, most of the time I was going because I wanted to read Motor Trend, or books about the Titanic. But like, I can't just be like, oh yeah, I can let my 12-year-old, run loose around a library now, like completely unsupervised. And it's not that I'm trying to be controlling, but I do have a God-given obligation to protect them from evil.
Absolutely.
And it blows my mind that we're to this point that there is a class of librarians, and I know there are good people who work in library science, so I'm not by any means maligning all of them. But,
sure.
But the general current driving the vocation, I won't say their profession, driving the vocation, is one of pure progressivism.
Yeah.
And you can't even call it liberalism anymore. I mean, it's progressivism. And so one thing I really appreciate about you is, like, you have been, like, the most consistent conservative voice on that school board, and that has not been easy.
It's challenging, I would say, but I hope that areas of me are growing in a good direction, is all I can say. Like, when you're faced with month after month or day after day of not knowing what's going to be said about you on social media or in the paper, you get to a point where you just have to kind of block out the noise and be focused on what your calling is and mm-hmm. what you're there to do. And so I hope I've gotten better at that. I mean, it was extremely difficult. There was a prominent political figure who, when I met her, I didn't know that her husband was into politics. And it was probably a few months into the school board where I became ashamed. I felt like I had lost my way. I didn't understand why people were taking issue with me, why people were saying such terrible things about me. And I became feeling depressed. I had trouble getting out of bed. I had trouble feeling like I could lift up my head in public and go to the store. And now I'm on a podcast, so I hope that some part of me has grown to where you just stick to what God's called you to do, and he's going to give you the strength and see you through it.
Yeah, well, and he's done that for you. I remember, I mean, there was this whole issue with the I call it the Baal flag. Some people call it the pride flag. Some people call it the progress flag. I call it the Baal flag because it's the banner of, that was used by, Baal was the god that people in the Old Testament times of Canaan worshipped and sacrificed children to, and in general made fools of themselves worshiping. So I call it the Baal flag. And there was this issue with a librarian actually having the kids color these flags, and you exposed that, and like that went international. I mean, you made news even across the pond.
Yeah, there's some interesting things going on there, but I think it was, maybe 2 aides or something like that, if I remember correctly, that had done this assignment, and I never got the information on it. Again, the same superintendent that we were talking about earlier made the decision to have all of the drawings of the children that were on the walls for public display removed, and I was never able to see them again. So I happened to be there for a supply donation, and was walking through and just, I thought when I was at an elementary school, just happened to be the same elementary school as well, that I shouldn't really be seeing drawings on the wall that listed out the various sexualities, pan and all this kind of stuff just caught my eye. So I just snapped some various pictures, and later when I got outside, I was looking at them in the parking lot and going, well, goodness, like what kind of an assignment could have this been? You know, I had never had a child relate to me the various types of sexuality that might be listed out on the bottom of a progress flag. So I was surprised by that. And so when I started asking questions, their response was, well, Miss Reid, you cannot go back to the building. You know, you now must have someone with you at all times.
As a school board member.
As a school board member. So all of a sudden, I was a threat, even though I just took some pictures and asked some questions. Like,
you mean they weren't proud about it?
They weren't proud about it. They wanted to immediately hide it.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's shocking, right? So that seems to be a recurring theme for sure.
And that blew up in the news. I mean, you were even in the Guardian, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it was. I was actually on vacation at the time, with my family, and ended up having to shut my phone off. I don't know exactly everything they do, but it felt like I was on an auto dialer of obscenities, and you know, people making threats and all kinds of things, and that lasted for a while. So I had to download apps to block calls and relearn how to use my phone in a way that I could actually use it instead of just an onslaught. But through that time, I tried to stay true to myself. From the very beginning, if someone would come at me with things I knew wasn't true about me, I would say, I will buy you a cup of coffee. You know, no one ever takes me up on that. But I thought they just wanted to meet in the middle. They don't want to meet for coffee, huh? Yeah, so I really do think that if people aren't genuine enough to sit down like this and talk human to human, then they just have their own agenda that they're pushing, and I'm happy to stand up against it.
Yeah, and you have stood. I mean, I remember when we were first getting to know each other and having conversations about, like, how do you deal with the attention and where do you draw the lines and what level of sacrifice is worth it. And now you're like come at me, bro. I mean, and I'm not trying to be funny about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been amazing watching the level that you've grown. I mean, and people are looking for that. I mean, you have really had an increase in influence. I mean, you went from there. I mean, they were literally, as I recall, at that point in time, like literally busing in people from out of the area to stand there and protest you specifically at the school board meeting.
Yeah, there was some interesting school board meetings. We had, these were local, I think, some local trans individual that liked to dress in the full black kind of militia-looking gear. There were weapons brought.
What weapons?
Multiple testimony gave that there were guns brought onto the campus, and I even asked. Of course, the school board is made up of liberals, almost majorly. So Judy Price at the time, I believe, was the chair. And anyways, I remember asking her, "Hey, can I have a change of seat?" Right, like I'm within direct line of potentially if someone wanted to shoot me, they just shoot me right through the glass door. And I couldn't have my seat moved. You know, the school board was completely awful to me. The individuals on the school board, let alone the staff, they acted like it was my fault. Because the school got some attention as well. And instead of taking responsibility for it and for what they had done, they acted like it was my fault. So it's an interesting time to have gone through. But like I said, I hope that I only learned well from it. So.
And then you went from there, and last year you stepped it up a notch and decided to run for county commission.
Yeah, I skipped the city level. I might have to go back and catch that at some point. But again, this same county commissioner who was in my district that wanted to bring the masks and everything, also wanted to bring the illegals to CoreCivic under President Biden's administration, who I was really concerned that they would just be released out the front door and it would change the landscape of our town. And then she was also at these meetings with a progress flag on her person, a part of my opposition. Again, never a conversation. just took side with the opposition, had this kind of stuff in her yard and such like that, as well as some of the other school board members. And so I began to build a case in my mind as to why she did not represent me on the county commission. And same thing I had done for school board. I started going around to everybody that I thought could do a decent job and said, I really think we need different representation on county commission. Will you please consider running for it? And time again, I didn't get doors slammed in my face, but no one was saying yes. And so it happened very similarly for me. I saw something that needed adjusted, went after it, and again, just thank everyone that voted for me.
And since then, like, your influence continues to grow. I've got to go to a few different events with you, and I mean, you're a known quantity. It's really, I mean, and I'm not trying to set to puff you up. I mean, I think it's a neat example of how desperate people are to see people who are willing to be unmoved by what they know to be right, by truth, and to say, yeah, okay, you don't like it. Okay, you're going to harass me about it. Okay, you're even going to have activists show up with firearms to protest me. Okay, I will not be moved. Right?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that is literally what you've done. And there is that's so hard to find. Right?
Well, I have to give credit to, obviously, God, my father, but also my earthly father. He was a pastor for many years of his own church. And he was just a strong, unmovable man, studied man of the faith. And he relayed that to me every single day of his life. When I was waking up in the morning, I would hear my father praying over me as he was eating his breakfast at the kitchen table. So being able to wake up to hear your father's voice across the house saying, Lord, will you please, watch over Vanessa? Will you please protect her throughout her day? He would pray for my brother and I every morning. And so I think that just really raised me, knowing that God was watching over me every day and he would provide for me and protect me. But there was a song we used to sing at his church, and some of the lyrics were, I will not be moved. For as a tree that's planted by the water, I will not be moved. So.
And that's really kind of been a rallying cry for you ever since. So what was it like? Like, again, you're going about life, and we don't even know each other in 2019. So I'm going to make an assumption here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you and your husband, you have a business that you've built and you're running, and you're raising children, and I imagine life looked pretty much like a, dare I say, normal American life in this part of the country at that point in time. And then in the 2 years after, you are thrust into this level of visibility and leadership, and there are people who are coming to your side and supporting you, but there are also a lot of detractors being very mean, being very ugly. Yeah. Like you said, to the point of you having to shut off your phone and to deal with it. And along that way, like, what was going through your mind about, like, did you ever question and think, I don't know, or was it like, this is the path?
Well, that's a good question. I know some days are hard, especially after board meetings that are really hard. Sometimes you go, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? Everybody thought I was going to run for school board again, including school staff. I had to really convince people that I was not going to run for school board again. So I think, I'm still very sad to walk away from it, because the public school system needs so much more attention than it gets. And I really took up issue with some churches in town, especially men. Like, it's not enough to be a Christian. It's not enough to go to church on Sunday. It's not enough to do church ministry. We have to be in the government realm. We have to be organized. We have to be running for office. We have to be holding these seats. And I really think anything other than that is just not really fulfilling what we're supposed to be doing. We know the majority of the kids in our communities are going to public school. Why isn't the board of the public school Christian men from our community who are taking over and are saying, we're going to have clean, appropriate books in the library. We're going to have clean, appropriate curriculum being taught to our students. And people that want to push back and say, oh no, you're banning books, like, no, the librarians select books. That's, a lot of times they buy off of the banned book list. So they're driven to do that for reasons.
I mean, and it's a complete fraud, this idea of banned books, when you can order them off Amazon and have them show up.
So we need to say what our kids are being taught matters. What is going into their, I was raised up with ear gates and eye gates. What you see matters. What you hear matters. And we need to stop pretending like it's not huge. It is huge what our kids hear. It is huge who their teachers are. And the teachers know that. Right? The teachers know how much influence they have, and they somehow want us to applaud them on one hand and ignore it on the other, and it's just not right.
Well, it's worldview training. And this is one area where I'll criticize conservatives as much as I criticize leftists. That one of the areas that I think our side fails is to say we just need to get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. That we just need to get away from the woke ideology and keep ideology out of the classroom. And yes, we need to get rid of the poisonous ideologies. But education is worldview training. Education literally means the transmission of values from one generation to the next. And we have this, on the conservative side, have this, really kind of wildly incorrect idea that education should be neutral. No, nothing is neutral. Like the left wing, they understand that. Like we need to wrap our heads around the fact that we need not apologize for saying there is truth and we're going to teach truth. It is not right wing to teach truth. Like that's just what sane people do. Mm-hmm. That's what people on mission do. That's what people who care about passing the torch of godly liberty that we were handed. That's what we do. And
it's not like we haven't had various sexualities in the classroom, whether as kids or otherwise. It's not like we weren't raised with family members who were homosexual or whatever term you want to use. So it's really offensive to me for them to use this type of rhetoric. Funny enough, my husband went to that same elementary school, but was not faced with various forms of sexual acts that you could do in 3rd and 4th grade. And he graduated from Atchison Community High School. And so his view of public school was very healthy because he went to a rural school where maybe the teacher who's teaching you evolution says, I have to teach you this, but I don't believe it. And that's also sad, right? That as a teacher, you're made to teach something that is not true. Mm-hmm. So I think the public school system has been, maybe from the beginning, due for an overhaul of truth, like what you said. Why can't we just teach facts and alongside of it teach other things as theories? But I think the focus on sexuality is just really a disservice to our children. And that's really been one of my main concerns. Even my daughter was getting speech therapy at one of the elementary school's early education building. And there was jokes being told there about doing a rainbow assignment with her. And so I had to pull her out from even just doing speech. And it's good that I did because they hadn't made any progress in a year anyways. If anybody has students in special education, they may have had a similar experience. So it's not just one place that the public school system really needs to step up their game, but it's the largest part of your tax bill. It definitely isn't a shortage of money, as they continuously say. So hopefully we'll be able to get some appropriate reform at some point.
Well, we need it. I mean, it's just even the appropriations they get. I mean, right there, they try to say, oh, we're a non-political body. You take the largest chunk of my tax bill every year, right there. That's public funding. You're coercing money from people, quite literally under threat of having their property removed from them.
Right.
You think that's not a political act, right? It's just we've got to get schools focused on understanding, like, it's about truth, and we've got to get parents to wake up. I mean, I think they're probably maybe if we're lucky, a small remnant, if you will, of districts in rural districts and maybe some of the charter schools where a kid can still get a decent education, not come out being taught to hate everything that is true. But
I don't know.
But it's I mean, if so, it's a small remnant, because even by design, when you go back to what John Dewey said about what public school was supposed to be, it was literally his words. I'm not making this up. His words, like, this system should exist to separate children from the prejudices of their parents.
Yeah. My great-grandfather was on one of the Lansing school boards before we had these unified school districts. And by the time it came to my grandfather and they went to more of a Lansing centralized instead of like the community schools, one-room schoolhouse and things like that, he had specific things that he thought he didn't want his children involved in, even back then. So I think parents have known all along that there was some risk, some things outside of their family that maybe wasn't the best for their student. And I love the opt-in that we've gotten to in some places. It's not enough to be able to opt your child out of something, and then you need to press the school on what is their experience going to be if you do decide to do that. Leavenworth completely failed my student in that. But we have to get it to where it's across the board opt-in. If I don't opt in to this, then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the large pushes that we worked on that I think is beneficial.
Well, and we need to have gates that ensure that it's only literally good, virtuous people who are teaching. I mean, and I know there are a lot of good, virtuous people who work in the public school system. And and they do so much in hiding, kind of as spies within almost.
Right.
But I mean, the kind of people that the educational complex is pushing into schools are not in line with what we know to be people who honor true, beautiful virtuism, right? They're not people who bend the knee to the Lord God Almighty. I mean, there are a lot of Christians who work in the school, but they get there in spite of the fact of what the educational complex is. And I just don't understand why we would not demand people of the highest character who are going to be around our kids, influencing them. I mean, for me, my decision is Lori and I decided our kids will never darken the door of a public school.
Yeah.
We don't trust.
Yeah.
And I wish more parents would make that decision.
Sure.
I think that's the right decision. But, okay, if you're not going to make that call, then you should absolutely be demanding only the best people are going to be influencing my kid during the hours I'm not.
And there's an understanding there for sure that not everyone has the ability to do that. You know, if you look at a single mom who's working full time, there's no way she's going to be able to homeschool her kid. So I think no matter what changes we might be able to make or shifts in individual homes people might be able to make to go down to one job or one car or get a, goodness, even a smaller house these days is probably more expensive than the mortgage payment you currently have. But, I think the majority of the kids are always going to be in the public school system, so we have to really focus and try and do as much good there as we can, just as we do for the larger community in any way. We work to try to better the area around us, and so I think it's important.
Yeah, it's totally important. I mean, this is something that, I wish we could just get rid of it entirely, but if we're not going to do that, we need to expect this going to be a virtuous system. Right, and it's currently not, and I'm so glad you've been willing to be a stalwart voice. I mean, people like you and people like Amy and people like Kirsten, and we've had them on the show as well to talk about the perilous fight, for our kids, and it's something we can't let go of, because what we received, we have to be willing. What we received that is good, we have to be willing to pass on, and the current system is not aligned to that way. It doesn't seem even the most remotely interested in that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of problems within the public school system. I couldn't even begin to touch the tip of the iceberg probably if I was trying to make a list of all of them. But we definitely saw, whether COVID or in regards to sexuality. I mean, one of the things is that we have secular counselors coming in to provide mental health care inside the school day. The student doesn't have a parent there with them during that time. So I think there's just a lot of things going on. A student can go to, a school nurse and ask for, family planning type situations. I think that we've just gotten away from my view of what school should be, why I went to school, and why I send my kids to school. And that's to be able to do math, read well, write in cursive, really basic things. I don't think I'll ever forget when I found out that my son was skipped in 3rd grade for learning cursive, and the school went on to graduate several students who were never taught cursive in their 3rd grade year. I learned later that it was school campus by school campus, which is the opposite of fair. But it's just mind-blowing to me, really, overall. It should be a community network, right? It should be focused on the parents' goals for the child, focused on the educational needs of the child. What do they need to succeed, whether they're going to be a homeschool mom or they're going to be the president of the United States? What does that look like? And I think the student should be meeting with the school counselor, not the psych, but I've found the school counselor department really not to be interested in the students under their assignment, but all these extra things, the foreign students that are coming in and all these other things, while the kids in their own city are failing. My son had the displeasure of being in the gifted program from about 3rd grade, and by the time he was in 7th grade, it was all about the LGBTQ agenda largely. And so I went in to speak with the teacher, and it was all about politics. My conversation with the teacher largely was focused on politics. And I thought, no wonder my kid comes home every day miserable. The teacher didn't care about increasing the education of my student in an appropriate way. He was just trying to make sure, he would be like a liberal at a mic at a Charlie Kirk rally. So.
Well, and you've even continued this fight beyond the school. Like as a county commissioner, you're trying to get some accountability from the local city library as well. And how's that gone so far? I remember hearing that they didn't want you to speak even.
Yeah, well, I had heard from concerned taxpayers that, of course, it was during Pride Month, that there were displays that were inappropriate for children, targeting children's sexuality. I'm so glad when I was 5, nobody was trying to convince me I was born in the wrong body or any ridiculous thing like that. But that's what our kids have to deal with today.
It's amazing that we're putting that kind of burden on children today. It's
right.
Sick.
Yeah, it's definitely questionable on the mental health side of things for sure, because those same people often will talk about mental health. So I went in with my camera. I was silent. There were no kids or adults on the shelves around that space. I made sure to speak with a staff member as soon as I walked into the children's section. I let them know exactly why I was there. I said, "Do you have pride displays?" They showed me the pride display, and then they went off to get other staff members. Another staff member came and said, "Yep, this is our pride display. Let us know if you have any questions." Okay. So I was very gentle and made sure to leave everything exactly as they had it, and was just taking pictures of the front of the books and maybe some pages of interest. And then another staff member approached me and let me know that I wasn't able to take pictures. So the first 2 didn't have a problem, but the 3rd one did. And this kind of brings me back to what we talked about with the children's drawings. I think individuals know to quite a large extent what they're doing is wrong. Mm-hmm. Satan knows what he's doing doesn't pass God's standard. And I think all these individuals do as well. They don't want you to see what they're up to, and they definitely don't want you to talk about it in public or shed light on it. So,
and they're such frauds. They really are. I mean, it's like you turn on a light and it's like the cockroaches running out of the room, and it's like, hang on, I thought you had pride about this. I thought you were excited about this. I mean, if you think if this is such a good thing, shouldn't you want pictures of it getting out?
Exactly.
But I mean, they expose themselves in their own reaction to it.
Yes.
And they prove themselves the frauds they've been from day one.
She even told me it was against policy, which I thought was interesting. And I did later look at their policy, and there's probably some truth to that, which is that, if a staff member asks you not to, and I left immediately and peaceably and didn't take, any more photos of books and things like that. But
you're better than me.
One of the
I've
most
been taking their picture too.
disturbing parts was that they used this adorable, cute little teddy bear, right, with the rainbow flag to identify the books that were to be on that display. So when you're going after the hearts and minds of children, I have a problem with that. Yeah,
and there's a reason they do it. I mean, they target children because they can't reproduce. They have to recruit. I mean, that's just they've chosen that lifestyle, and that's, I mean, that you don't find these alphabet reading hours at nursing homes or at lunch break at the local car factory. You only find them in schools,
targeting kids,
and during children's reading hours. Right? Isn't that interesting?
Especially when they take it up a notch and have the local drag queen come. It's just very troubling that we have so many individuals who, and parents, right? It's not like this isn't parents. These same individuals in the schools are often parents, the ones that sit alongside these drag shows and take their kids there intentionally knowing it's a drag show are parents. And I'm glad it never crossed my mind that I should take my son to the strip club. I mean, it's
because you're sane.
I don't know what they've been through. To me, they must have gone through something to think that that's what they want to expose their child to. But I think we need to, again, look at the motive behind it. Are we protecting kids and trying to get them out of sex rings and bring criminals to justice? Or are we ushering kids and trying to make them doubt who they are for evil purposes? And that's what I see at play.
Yeah. That's the evil purposes. I mean, that sums it up right there. And it's just, Jesus spoke pretty clearly about what God's opinion is about people who lead children astray. And I think we would do well to remember that and probably reread that daily. We're coming up on the end of time here, and I just I want to ask if there's anything else that you'd like to share, because you've just been such a stalwart, immovable force for good in the community, and in spite of just a lot of, frankly, abuse, and yet you've stood, and that's encouraged me, that's inspired me. I know that's inspired and encouraged a lot of people in the city, in the county, across the rest of Kansas. What's next?
What's next?
What would you share with those who are on the fence, early versions of you?
Oh, just do it. And don't look back, and don't look to the left and to the right. Just look straight ahead. So.
And don't doubt. Love it. You're awesome. I appreciate all the work you're doing. I'm grateful to be in your orbit. I'm grateful to be your friend. And I'm grateful to you for telling me to come talk to the Herzog Foundation about this podcast idea.
Thank you, Herzog.
Yeah, Herzog. Woo, woo. They're awesome. And that's actually part of my closing, is how awesome the Herzog Foundation is. I'm telling you, you should totally follow them and go to their website at herzogfoundation.com to learn more about the amazing work they do to catalyze Christian education. If you'd like to know more about me and my work, you can go to chasespears.com. And Vanessa, where can people follow you?
Oh, let's see. I don't really do the following thing.
You don't really do the following thing. She doesn't really do the following thing because she's too busy doing the influence thing with her.
I do have a county commission Facebook page. It's very minimally posted too. That's about it.
Okay. Sleuth her online. But it's great to have her here, and on this, sharing her story of courage and bravery and steadfastness. I hope you will take these principles and put them to work in your life and like she did, find your spine. I'm Chase Spears. Thanks for listening.
Remember to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time on Finding Your Spine.